throws, swings.
There it is! Get out! Get out! All right! Hit number 4192. Swing on and miss. And Tom Browning has pitched a perfect game. And a high fly ball, center field. He hit it a ton. It's gone. And the 2010 Central Division Championship belongs to the Cincinnati Reds. And Homer Bailey has pitched a no-hitter.
You're listening to the Redlegs Radio Report with Jason and Todd on Bowling Green's home of the Reds, ESPN Radio.
Jason Harbison with you on the Redlegs Radio Report on ESPN 102.7 FM and, of course, 1450 AM, Bowling Green, Kentucky. You can hear our show throughout the season, the Red season, of course, Saturdays from 9 to 10 a.m. Central. Now, our guest today will start his second full season as a Reds radio broadcaster. He's from Smithville, Missouri, and is a graduate of Northwest Missouri State. Go Bearcats. And you may remember him from his visit to Bowling Green on the Reds Caravan earlier this year, and he's becoming a show regular. Ladies and gentlemen, Tommy Thrall. Tommy, how you doing, buddy?
I'm great. Thanks for that great intro there. That's outstanding. Yeah, and by the way, since you mentioned Smithville, that is also the hometown of the manager of the San Diego Padres, Jace Tingler.
Oh,
so
okay.
We're both Smithville guys. He was actually 4 years ahead of me. He was a senior when I was a freshman. Mm-hmm. And it's worth noting, I faced him one time in an inter-squad scrimmage, got him out on the only pitch I threw to him. So that basically puts me in the Hall of Fame, I think. Nice.
I mean, that can go on your plaque. If you ever get in the Hall of Fame for broadcasting, maybe there can be like a little portion at the bottom of it that says that on there. So it's funny though, Tommy, you've been coming on our show for what seems like a while now, and my co-host Todd, who couldn't join me today, and I were joking earlier. It's like we need to get him like a sport jacket, like they used to do, like on Johnny Carson would do that for his regular guests. He'd get him like a sport jacket that they'd wear, like thinking like the Masters golf tournament or something. So
yeah, it would probably be just as prestigious as the green jacket. You know, when I think about it in my head, I think of the Reds Radio Report and the Masters. It's about the same level, I think. I mean, really? I don't know what other people would think, but to me, they're right there on par with each other. So I think it's a great idea.
Well, now it seems like, I know 2020 seems like it's been about 5 years, but you were actually in Bowling Green, like I gave you in your intro there, this past Reds Caravan. It was your first trip down here. So, that was back in, I think, early February, maybe late January of this year, but it seems like forever ago.
It seems like 3 decades ago. I mean, so much has changed in the world since then. And it's funny because you even go back to the start of spring training and think about how on track everything seemed. We didn't even have any of this in our really in the foresight, like in the future. Didn't even envision what would come. And it feels like an eternity ago. So. Hopefully we're getting closer to being back to normal and we can get back down there to Bowling Green sometime soon.
Let's hope so. So, Tommy, the Reds have had a really interesting offseason, to say the least here, especially in the past couple of weeks. Lots of rumors of maybe a salary dump that's happening and even shopping of Sonny Gray. And I'm sure a lot of this may have to do with just really the shortfall of roughly, I think, about $100 million of revenue due to the COVID not having fans and just different aspects of that. What are your thoughts really on all that's kind of transpired?
Well, there's no question that a lot of the teams lost a lot of money during the 2020 season. So I think almost everybody's kind of in the same boat as far as trying to figure out how to field a competitive team while still saving money. And I think when you look at what Nick Krall has done, I think whether or not they resign Trevor Bauer remains to be seen. But I think when you really look at it, they've done a little bit of trimming of the fat. Where are areas where the team can save a little money without really losing much in terms of production? I think there are guys that can step in and close games. The Raisel Iglesias move, I think, is really the big one. The Reds have made some other moves, but obviously the Raisel Iglesias, I think, is the big one. wondering what's going to happen with Trevor Bauer is certainly a concern as well. But keep in mind that this was a Reds pitching staff. When the Reds traded for Trevor Bauer, a lot of people thought, well, why are they getting another starter? The starting pitching isn't the issue. So keep that in mind. That was just the 2018 season, or 2019 season rather. So that was one of those where the pitching staff is pretty much the same as it was then. Anthony DeSclafani is signed elsewhere now, but he was really kind of a roller coaster. And I don't know, for all of his upside, I don't think he had got to a point yet where you could really pencil him in as a consistent starter. So from a starting pitching standpoint, I really think that this team's still in a good position. You free up a little money, maybe you're able to go sign another bat because the offense was a little inconsistent last year. And who knows what's going to happen at shortstop, but I think that's the real focus. And now maybe they have a little bit more financial flexibility to make a move there at that position.
Now, you mentioned DeSclafani. It's funny. I think there's probably going to be a Redlegs Radio Report curse because we had Marty on and the signing happened while we were on air. It's the time of our recording. So I'm sure the time of our recording today, there's probably going to be some big move, and this is all going to be this interview could easily be null and void on anything that we're saying now. This is the curse of the Bowling Green Redlegs Radio Report. Just letting you know, Tommy.
Good to know. Yeah.
So really, the 2020 Reds came up short, obviously, in the playoffs, but it was just a wacky season overall, and there were some rule changes, of course, the shortened 60-game sprint, if you will. And are there some things that you would like to see moving forward, whether it's the designated hitter, some of the new rules with starting a runner at second base and extra innings, or I think everyone could agree that the playoff expansion was just something that baseball really needed, and it was just amazing to watch, even though the Reds came up short.
Yeah, I think I might be in the minority. I don't know. I don't know the overwhelming feeling on the playoffs. I was very okay with the expanded playoffs last year to allow for teams like the Reds that got off to a slow start, found their stride late. That happens in baseball every year. That's just a part of the game. That's the way it goes. So I thought that the expanded playoffs allowed for those teams to still get into the postseason. And I think for the most part, the postseason played out really well. Would have obviously liked to have seen the Reds advance a little farther, but that Braves pitching staff was really good. In fact, they were better than even I realized. And I think we saw that as they continued to advance. So the Reds created some opportunities in those two games, which not many teams did against that staff. So I think that shouldn't be lost, I guess, is what I'm saying. I don't know that as disappointing as it was, and you don't score a run in two games is tough, but they weren't without opportunities, and opportunities were hard to come by for everybody against the Braves pitching staff in that postseason. So all that being said, I'm not a huge advocate of the expanded playoffs moving forward. If that's what baseball decides to do, great. There's a lot of good things that come from it. There's a lot of communities and a lot of towns around Major League Baseball that are still excited about their teams down the stretch because of that. I've always liked kind of less is more when it comes to postseason. I like for teams to really have to earn it. I prefer when you have just the elite teams that are going to the postseason. I'm okay with the wild card. I actually like the one-game wild card playoff. I think that's a lot of fun. So I'm okay with that. And as far as the other rule changes, I really liked the extra inning rule, and there's a few reasons for it. I was in the minor leagues when it was first introduced to the minor leagues, and that was a few years ago. And I remember thinking, wow, this is really a shame. This is going to be brutal. And the more I watched it and the more games we had, I thought, the baseball is actually pretty good when you start a runner at second base. You have teams that are starting to execute offensively a little more. They're focused on doing the little things to get that runner in from second base. Occasionally you will see a team bunt, depending on who's up. It really got away from what I feel like extra innings had turned into, which was a home run derby. I like extra innings. I don't mind it. I could sit there and be at the ballpark for 5 hours. I'm not in any rush to speed up the game. Pace of play is a little bit different, but actual time of game, I like the games, and I love the game of baseball. So if it's a good game and it's a long game, I'm fine with that. but I thought it really enhanced pace of play in extra innings. It creates more action, and you have fewer guys trying to hit home runs to win a game.
Yeah, very true. Jason Harbison here from the Redlegs Radio Report with Tommy Thrall, of course, ESPN 102.7 FM and 1450 AM. Now, Tommy, you mentioned a little bit, of course, we're very familiar with your time in the minor leagues coming up from the Blue Wahoos, also spent some time with Quad City, I believe. So this past week of the time of this taping, minor league baseball contracted about 45 teams, getting them down to 119 teams, which obviously we knew was something that was coming. There were a couple of Reds affiliates that last year at this time were potentially on the chopping block. I think Chattanooga and Daytona Tortugas were two teams that were kind of speculative to not be here around this time. So I guess I just kind of want your 30,000-foot view of what happened. You talked about baseball communities, and you're very familiar with coming up through the minors and kind of what that has done to some towns, and really some towns that are in Reds country. If you look at Lexington, I think there's a team in West Virginia, the West Virginia Power, also no longer affiliated with minor league baseball, and even one of the Reds' longest running affiliates up in Billings, Montana. So they're still in minor league baseball, but it's just kind of a little bit different for them. They're not affiliated necessarily with a team.
I was relieved, I guess, to see, first of all, so many affiliates retained. I thought that was great, especially with the Reds. All the teams that received invitations from the Reds were existing Reds affiliates. So I was relieved to see that. Chattanooga is a great baseball town. So I was really happy to see that the team staying there. There were, anytime you have contraction in minor league baseball, it kind of breaks my heart, because I definitely have a soft spot for minor league baseball. I certainly wouldn't be where I'm at. I wouldn't have had the opportunities that I've had without minor league baseball, and that's true of so many players and other broadcasters too. So it is tough to see. I thought the restructuring, some of it certainly made some sense. Billings joining the league. Out west, I think the Pioneer League is continuing on, but now is an independent league, but still with ties to Major League Baseball. So there are some good independent leagues that Major League Baseball has teamed up with, which I think is healthy for those leagues and good for those players that are in those leagues. I'm curious to see what it does from a developmental standpoint for teams. I don't know. You had some teams that were expanding their minor leagues, others that were streamlining their minor league systems. So it's tough when you see good markets lose their teams, but hopefully they'll find a way to continue on and get some teams in there, because minor league baseball is really a fabric of so many summertime the fabric of summertime in so many communities. And so you hate to see great towns lose their teams, but hopefully they'll find a way, whether it's through independent baseball or some of these summer collegiate leagues that are now going to be run by Major League Baseball. Maybe they'll find a way to continue to operate and still operate a high level of baseball that's entertaining for the fans in those communities.
Yeah, the word contraction is never really anything good that you want to hear, but there is some upside, like you were saying, of some things that did happen. I think right here in our backyard, the Bowling Green Hot Rods from the Midwest League, as well as, of course, the Dayton Dragons, who have been a long-time running affiliate of the Reds and basically printing money up there in Dayton, because they've sold out every game, I think, since 2000, their inception. So that league actually moved up, that we're low A is now going to be high A. So for those communities, our communities, like I said, in our backyard, we're going to see a higher level of talent coming through. And of course, the Hot Rods are a Rays affiliate, and you saw how far the Rays got this past postseason. So I think that's great, like you were talking, Tommy, about just the local community feel and just getting to see a higher level talent, and the odds of seeing somebody that's going to be in the majors maybe a year closer than they were before, I think is exciting for a lot of people.
I spent some time at high A baseball, and I think you'll be impressed with the jump in caliber of play from low A to high A. It really is a fairly significant jump. So I hope the fans appreciate that and enjoy that, especially those that are true baseball fans in those communities. I know minor league baseball is largely built on promotions and fun at the ballpark, but the baseball is also pretty good. So I hope the fans enjoy the jump in caliber of play there.
We had Marty and Amanda Brenneman on this past week too, and for a split second last year when those initial names came out, there were some rumors that the Hot Rods would switch to Double-A. They'd have to expand their stadium, and they would become a Reds affiliate because, of course, Chattanooga, we weren't sure if they were going to be around. Like you said, glad that they are, such a great, rich baseball town. So as a broadcaster, as a fan, I mean, I was excited for however long that rumor was out there, but that was, something that, again, getting to see Reds players come down to our community. I'd be spending even more time at the ballpark. I'd probably have even less time to cover the Reds because I'd want to be at Bowling Green Ballpark to watch some of the future Reds come through. But as it shook out, I mean, it's still great that they're affiliated with the Rays, as I was saying, and again, great for the Midwest League.
No doubt, and still certainly some great talent going through Bowling Green there. Yeah,
matter of fact, Derek Dietrich, a former Red, came through the Tampa Bay system, and he played here in Bowling Green, and it's kind of funny, not funny, that they've got a kind of a wall down there at Bowling Green Ballpark that have all the names of the players on it that have made it through. And you think low A, maybe there'd be about 5-6 guys. No, I mean, you got Kiermaier, you've got Matt Moore came through. I mean, all of these names, I mean, there's probably 35, 40 guys that came through Bowling Green. And for a somewhat young team that was established in 2009, it's just amazing to me that all those guys basically went through our backyard.
I would think Blake Snell would be on that list as well.
I can't remember if he's on there or not.
But you also have to take into account how many guys have come through from other teams that have gone on to the big leagues as well, because you're seeing future big leaguers on both teams. And that is still, I'd be curious to know when Dayton comes to town, what does it look like? Are there a lot of Reds fans at those games?
There are. You see a lot of Reds because we tend, for the radio station, we tend to cover those games, kind of watch them a little closer. And there's always a lot of Reds hats. You see a lot of Reds jerseys, maybe like a Larkin jersey or something sitting in the stands. So, yeah, it's really interesting. And, again, that kind of fed into the rumors that I was talking about last year of them possibly being a Reds affiliate. But, yeah, you definitely see a little bit of an uptick, especially on weekend games down here in Bowling Green, seeing a lot of Reds fans.
Very good.
Yeah. So, switching gears a little bit, Tommy, the collective bargaining agreement expires December 21. I know you're not in the front office of the Reds. You're a broadcaster like myself. And seeing what we saw, how tough it was to even get this shortened 60-game season started, and just the back and forth. And, again, rumors. You'd read on Twitter one day, the season's not happening. We're going to have 100 games. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. Do you think that's a big factor in coming into even possibly, I hate to say it, but a strike possible when that expires next year at this time?
I've never been through any of this before. I've watched it from afar as a fan or even somebody that's worked in the minor league. So this is a little closer look than I've had at it before. And I really don't know what to think. I don't know how the whole thing plays out. I asked my broadcast partner, Jeff Brantley, a lot of questions just because I don't understand how it all works. And I don't, understand all there's a lot of layers to it. And it's certainly, there's stuff below the surface as well that we're not always privy to. So I'm curious to see how it's going to play out. I'd like to think that both sides understand the importance of getting in a full season next year. I think they understand the importance of getting in as many games as possible this season. So I'm really curious to see what it's all going to look like. I'd like to think that it'll all work out in the best interest of the game of baseball. The two sides will come to an agreement, and we'll continue on uninterrupted in 2022, but only time will tell. But optimistically, I'd like to think that both sides will find an agreement.
Yeah, I think everybody as a fan, forget that we're broadcasters, wants to see the best outcome. Especially this past year with losing all the revenue that we talked about. I think it's going to be tough for a lot of teams to recover from that. Really, any business that is in that situation. And I think the last thing that baseball needs, and you could easily lose. I always think about my young daughter who's 14, and baseball to her and her friends sometimes is just like this old man stuffy game that they like going to the ballpark, but it's usually to get Dippin' Dots and just kind of to hang out and do other stuff because there's 100 more things to do there. And, oh, by the way, there's a baseball game going on. So I could see the trickle-down effect that would have if something as bad as a strike would happen coming out of the collective bargaining agreement expiration.
Yeah, it seems like anytime you don't have something, people find other things to do, and then they realize once it returns, well, I have other stuff going on now. So I that's why I think you want to keep it going, and I think that's one of the things that baseball really has going for it in the summertime is its consistency. It's reliable. You know when it's going to start, you know when it's going to end, and you know there's going to be a game every day in between, with few exceptions for off days. So I really think the consistency is a huge asset that baseball has in its favor, and I think that needs to continue.
Tommy Thrall with us on the Redlegs Radio Report. Jason Harbison, of course, on ESPN 102.7 FM and 1450 AM. This very special Zoom interview that we're doing, kind of in lieu of us not getting to do Reds Fest this year. So as much as I like seeing everybody face-to-face, I think this is a great kind of substitution, if you will.
Yeah, it's different. We've all gotten used to the Zoom calls though over the last year. So, but it's no substitute for seeing you in person, face to face, Reds Fest, the Caravan, all that. So, but hey, it's what we've got. It's what we have. So, making the best of it.
That's right. Now, Tommy, on the few times that are again growing, we're going to fit you for that coat. I think you're probably about a size 40 regular. I'm just guessing, but. We never can let you leave the show with asking maybe like a goofball question. And this isn't really goofball because you've already told a lot of people about this. But last year during your first Reds affiliate meeting luncheons, you told this great story, and you may have to make it PG for the air here, about your time with the Kansas City T-Bones. You kind of had a Brockmeyer type moment with one of your, I guess, older co-hosts and drinking and just kind of saying some crazy stuff on air, straight out of the Major League Baseball movie.
So my broadcast partner my first year in Kansas City was the team's general manager. And when you're dealing with minor league baseball, the general manager is the guy that they run the baseball or the business side of it. So he had a little broadcasting in his background. He had done some AAA baseball, and he liked to have a couple cervezas throughout the course of the game. And he'd tip them back as we're going along and doing the game. And we get to one night, particularly long night. The extra innings rule would have come in real handy, but it didn't exist. And he's putting them back pretty good. And by the time we're in extra innings, he's feeling real good. And in fact, we alternated in extra innings. So, he'd do the 10th, maybe the 11th, 12th, back and forth, and so forth. So it was his turn, and I don't know what inning it was, 15th, 16th inning, something like that. And as the inning started, he's over there kind of bobbing his head back and forth, eyes half closed, but I thought, well, he's the boss, the heck with it. And here we go again, here's Rick. And so he's going on. Well, the inning continues. The T-Bones load the bases with nobody out and can't score. And the game continues. And let's say the score was 5-5. He goes to break, still tied at 5. This sucks. So we had some fun there with the T-Bones. It was certainly got away with some things you probably couldn't get away with at other places.
Got to love minor league baseball, especially independent minor league baseball back in the day. Really, that's a great story. I love hearing stuff like that. And before I let you go, I know it doesn't sound like I've done much research, but I did a little bit of research about Northwest Missouri State. There are some famous alumni. I'm going to go ahead and say that maybe you're about the third famous alumni from there. Brandon Dixon, the NFL cornerback, went there, as well as famous MLB third baseman Gary Gaetti. Now,
yes.
Is it safe to say that you're probably about the third, maybe the fourth famous alumni from Northwest Missouri State?
I mean, if you're including me in that mix, your definition of fame is very, very generous. Now, there's quite a few accomplished folks that have come through Northwest Missouri State. In fact, I will say this: it's wild. The group that I worked with doing college football. So there was a group of, I think, 5 of us that did. 4 or 5 of us that did college football, that did the Northwest football games. My second to last year, I guess. Of that group, one guy is now an afternoon show host on a big sports talk station in Kansas City. Another one is the program director for, I think, the #1 hit station in Kansas City. another guy worked for Westwood One, and then here I am hanging out in Cincinnati calling some Reds games. So it's pretty wild when you look at that group that came from a pretty small college, but we all went there for the same reasons, to get some good experience, and it worked out. So it was pretty fun. It was a great school, and I have nothing but good things to say about it.
That's great to hear. Well, Tommy Thrall, thanks so much for coming on. And I'm sure every time you hear Bearcats in Cincinnati, especially this year with football, you probably think of your college, but they're actually talking about UC. So
yeah, slightly different Bearcats, but still warms my heart. Still warms my heart to hear the Bearcats.
That's good to hear. Thanks so much, Tommy Thrall, ladies and gentlemen, for coming on the Redlegs Radio Report.
Jason, thank you so much. Always enjoy it.
Appreciate it.